Hello everyone, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the introduction and thank you to the casting service for bringing me over here to this amazing country, Australia. I'm going to talk about the role of social media during the Tunisian revolution. But before that, since 2009 protests following the election in Iran and the arrest following the protest of the Green Movement, we've heard a lot about Twitter revolution and some buzzwords like Facebook revolution and then WikiLeaks revolution. And most of them didn't really look quite good to the internal dynamic and the actors and factors of the people who are engaged on fighting censorship, corruption, nepotism, and dictatorship in those countries. So I'm going to use the Tunisian context to highlight the decade work of Tunisian activists and how they use new information technology to fight against censorship and corruption. Tunisia was a model, and maybe still model, for many countries. Tunisia, if I might borrow the expression, was a classical realpolitik situation. It's a country that has beautiful beaches, blue sea. It's a country with very progressive jurisdictions toward women. It's a country with an open market. It's a country which is very good for the cheap tourism industry for Europeans. So it's a country that was tolerated by official Western government during the revolution and even the French government 3 weeks after the Tunisian revolution, when the government was killing protesters. French proposed its security and police support to the government of Ben Ali. And we didn't see any kind of Western support except the support from the human rights NGOs and civil society in the West, but from the government side, from the official Western side, we didn't see any kind of support to the struggle of the Tunisian people for reform and democracy. Tunisia was very repressive online and offline regime. On the online ground, Tunisia actually applied a set of tools and strategy to muzzle online free speech. Most of the Tunisian dissident websites were based abroad because there is no room in Tunisia to host and administer a website that is critical toward the government. So maybe all the Tunisian blogs and websites were administrated by exiled and refugees living mainly in Europe and North America. And the goal of the Tunisian regime at that time was to block any kind of website and blogs that is disseminating news and information about human rights abuses and corruption, nepotism in the country. It didn't work quite well because blocking websites actually doesn't block the information. There is many ways to circumvent censorship. There is many ways to disseminate the same information across platforms. So the second strategy used by the government and then used by many other governments in the world is to hijack the website, to take down the source of the information, or to carry on what we call DDoS attack or DDoS attack in the source of the information. And between the source of the information, which is based abroad, and the inside the country, there is what we call deep packet inspection, which try to survey, monitor all kinds of traffic and communication channels between people living outside the country and people inside the country, and filter some keyword, filter some expression that might harm the image of the regime inside the country. Within Tunisia, we've got more than 30 online activists who have been jailed because of their online activities, and we got a situation in which the government created an atmosphere of fear in which internet users censor themselves and do not dare to criticize the government online. This is the very negative aspect of this censorship machine which was implemented by the government. The positive aspect of it, which is the creation of a generation of tech-savvy activists who know how to deal with censorship, how to use proxies, circumvention technology, and how to use them in a time of revolution. So the role of digital activism in a country living under repression and under dictatorship is to bridge the gap between what we call traditional human rights NGO, opposition party, and the apolitical internet. Most of the people who are surfing the internet are not politicized. They are there for fun, they are watching cute cat on videos, they like to watch porn, they're not politicized. And the politicized sphere is those who are really engaged in political discourse and debate. The role of digital activism is to try to bridge the gap between those two spheres and try to achieve the goal of politicizing the entire internet and make it a field to fight against dictatorship. And this method worked quite well in Tunisia because of the early internet penetration in the country during the 90s. It worked quite well in Egypt because the country of Egypt didn't really implement any kind of censorship against blogs and websites, unlike Tunisia, Syria, Iran, China, etc. And I'm going to go through some cases how Tunisian activists since 2000 and 2005 started using some user-friendly tools, sometimes free tools that are not costly, to try to counter the propaganda of the government, the propaganda which is very, very clever, propaganda that convinced the official West to support and to be committed to the Tunisian government until the last hours of the Ben Ali regime. So this is an example of the use of Google AdWords, which I think you know already the service. You can buy some keywords from Google. You can invest $100 and you can buy like keywords like Australia or Melbourne, anything. And then when people search that word on Google search, they're going to get some results what we call sponsored search term that you can see on the sidebar of Google or on the top of Google. So we use this technique to buy the word SMSI, which is an acronym of the Sommet Mondial de la Société d'Information, or World Summit for Internet Society, which is a UN conference that was held in Tunisia in 2005, a conference about the internet governance held in the country, which is very repressive online. So we created a campaign which is called Yessi Fok Ben Ali, which means enough is enough Ben Ali, and we tried to circumvent the censorship that was applied in Tunisia because all that are disseminating news and politics were blocked in Tunisia. So by using this technology, we can broadcast our messages, which is here, on pro-governmental website in Tunisia because they are using Google AdSense, and by using Google AdSense, they are recipient of any message that the seller is putting there. And then from online we went offline. We wrote the same message on the money of Tunisia, which says Ben Ali enough and enough, and then it played the role of political track, that people disseminated among each other without any risk of going to jail. With the same occasion, we asked the Tunisians to send us their picture with the same slogan, Ben Ali enough and enough. And this was in 2005, and it was among the first online demonstration protesting the situation of dictatorship and censorship in the country. Another example from 2006, which is the Tunisian prison map. We worked on putting all prisons in Tunisia on a Google map, and we use a technique called mashup. We mashed videos that are talking about human rights abuses witnessed by former prisoner and political prisoner in the country with the geolocation of the prison in Tunisia. And we came up with a third product, which is a mashup map between Google Maps and YouTube. And we helped people who are not familiar with the political discourse, because normally human rights NGO like Human Rights Watch, Reporters Without Borders, Amnesty International, all human rights organizations tend to write kind of discourse that the average internet user do not read. It's always targeting journalists, human rights advocates, researchers, etc. It doesn't really target the average internet user. So you need to come up with a new strategy. You need to make your human rights discourse much more fancy, much more catchy, that the normal internet user will find it at least interesting to watch and then to understand. And maybe they would be more interested to dig in and read later on the human rights reports. This is another example of investigating the Tunisian airplane, the presidential airplane. A friend of mine was like going in website of JetSpotter, and he found out that the official Tunisian presidential airplane were photographed in many airports in Europe. So we went to the website of the Tunisian president, and then we compared the list of the official visits of the Tunisian president abroad, and the picture, the photo of his airplane in Europe, and we found out that only one trip was official, and the rest of the trips weren't official. So the question was, who is using the Tunisian presidential airplane, and what was the purpose of this use? And then we made a video. Very simple video using Google Earth. You can fly with Google Earth and record the screen and then broadcast your message on Google Earth itself. And by doing that, you can have a censorship that was implemented on YouTube. So it was very easy technique, using free available tools for everyone who can use them, and then try to make some investigative journalism comparing official lists of the official trips of the president with the picture that were taken by photographer in airport in Europe, and then coming up with a conclusion and then ask the internet user in Tunisia, you are paying tax for this presidential airplane that is being used for what we don't know. But foreign policy investigated the case and then found out that the first lady of Tunisia was using the airplane for shopping in luxury shopping, etc. After this video, Tunisia blocked YouTube and then blocked Dailymotion and then blocked Vimeo, BigTV, MetaCafe. All video websites in Tunisia were blocked until the 13th of January, few hours after the fall of Ben Ali. There is also work of anti-propaganda. We were always following what the mainstream media in Tunisia is writing about the Ben Ali, his family, the image of the country, and then try to counter that with facts, with evidence, and try to use cheap information technology to counter that propaganda. This is La Presse, the Tunisian Pravda, actually, during the Ben Ali time. In 2007, they came up with this news, actually, that the city of Tuscany in Italy, in order to honor the achievement of the President Ben Ali, they gave a street name, Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, to the main street of Tuscany, the big street of Tuscany. This was the news in all newspapers and TV and radio in Tunisia. What we did, we investigated the case. Was it the street? Was it a dead end? Was it in the city? Was it in the village? Where was this street? And we found out that it wasn't actually a street, it was a dead end. And it was not in the city, it was outside a small village in Tuscany. And we used Google Earth to measure that street. 80 meters. And then we broadcasted that online, social media website, and we tried to counter the propaganda, which was spending a lot of money with actually gratis, free tools. And by doing that, we helped creating a snowball effect that normal internet user with jokes, with funny tools and tactics, they try to break the wall of fear and try to start criticizing seriously the politics of the government. Another example.
today, which has never before been shown on television anywhere. Never before been shown on television anywhere.
So to explain the video, this is very easy technique. Actually, Tunisia blocked YouTube in the country, but Google Earth is part of Google, and YouTube is part of Google. They both share the geolocation. If you publish a video on YouTube and you add the geolocation of the video, where did you take this video, which location and which date, actually you are sending the information to Google Maps and Google Earth. And by activating the layer on Google Earth that you want to see the video from YouTube, you simply have the censorship and you watch YouTube. So what we did is just make that simple click. By simple click, you just being clever and you activate actually a proxy, which isn't a proxy, but it works like a proxy, and people can watch this blocked video on Google Earth. And we went to the Tunisian presidential palace because it's in the Carthage, historical city of Carthage in Tunisia, which is visited by many tourists because that were place of civilization of Carthage. And we besieged the video, we geolocated all the video on YouTube with that specific location because most of the tourists will go there to see the views of Carthage, but they're going to watch videos about human rights abuses. And that was trying to counter the propaganda. People are searching for tourism information because, I'm sorry to say, most of the tourists go stupidly making tourism. They don't ask about the political situation. They want white beaches and blue sea. That's what they want. They don't want to know about the trouble that the population is going through. So we try to change that picture and to give them the right info. So the entire strategy is that what we call the social web or the Web 2.0 is actually an unblockable infrastructure. It's based on the philosophy and spirit of shareism, which you cannot block. You can block one website, but you cannot block the information from spreading to one website to another. You know how to link your Twitter account with Facebook and vice versa. You know how to link your YouTube account with Posters or with Dailymotion or with, you know, how to link Foursquare with Twitter and Facebook, etc. The information always flows. And there is no way to block the information, even if you block the website. So this was actually the main strategy of the Tunisian activism, that you can block the entire website of the world. The information still will get into the country, and people will know what's going on in the country. It took us maybe a decade, 10 years to go from online activism to the offline activism. This was the first flash mob demonstration in 2010. It was in April, I think, like 6 months before the revolution. Tunisian bloggers and activists asked each other to go into the street of Tunis, the main avenue in Tunisia, and then to wear a white t-shirt, just that, sit on the cafe, sip coffee, drink beer, do whatever you want, just wear a white t-shirt in the street. That was enough to make the police crazy, and they started arresting everyone as a white t-shirt. Well, they were afraid that small flash mob will grow up little by little and become political demonstration. But this first offline protest started actually online 10 years ago, when we started working on politicizing the internet and trying to convince people to care about the situation and try to change it. And then came WikiLeaks. The new sun doesn't break Julian Assange. Yeah. So in 2010, we got, I know Julian Assange, he's a very good friend of mine, we met in 2007 in Budapest. When WikiLeaks got the US papers, the US Embassy's papers in 2010, they gave us all the papers about Tunisia, actually. It was in November 28th, 2 weeks before the Tunisian revolution. And it was the first citizen media website that partnered with WikiLeaks. It was Nawad from Tunisia. And we got the cables, we translated the most important part of the cables, we put them into context, And we put all the cable on PDF file, and we disseminated the file everywhere on the internet. And after that was the agreement, we published the cables on the 20th of November. After half an hour, Nawat, we published the Tunisian cables. It was exclusivity to Nawat. And then it went like fire on a, like all the Tunisian websites started republishing the cables. The Foreign Ministry of Tunisia came to counter what was in the cables, because all the information in the cables was about how corrupted the Tunisian establishment is, how the family of Ben Ali, his son-in-laws, are really stealing the country and the wealth of the country. All WikiLeaks about Tunisia was talking about this specific information, and this was the main, actually, concept of the Tunisian revolution: nepotism and corruption. There is very strong link between the content of the WikiLeaks paper about Tunisia and the Tunisian revolution. I think research and academics will, in the future, try to understand at least the impact of WikiLeaks on the Tunisian revolution and beyond the Tunisian revolution, because we've sent the file to Al-Akhbar newspaper in Lebanon 2 weeks after, and then Al-Akhbar got hijacked and hacked by Saudi hackers who were financed by Saudi Arabia. And then we witnessed what happened with presidents like Gaddafi, Mubarak, etc. There is a link between broadcasting the information and the effect on the ground. And then came the revolution in December. And as I told you, all video sharing websites, all picture websites were blocked in Tunisia. Only Facebook remained unblocked, because the Tunisian government was afraid to block Facebook and to fuel the revolution. Because the government tried to block Facebook in 2008, and there was a huge protest from even within the establishment, because Facebook was the only platform left where Tunisian and the youth can interconnect with each other. So during the revolution, the president was very afraid to block the website, so he left it. And that was the big mistake, because by blocking everything else, he managed to gather all Tunisians all together on one platform. And then I managed to organize the protest on that platform. But then Facebook was, as you know, a closed platform. You need to have an account. You need to understand the language. You need, even if you are Arabic, you read Arabic, you cannot understand the Tunisian dialect, because we write it in Latin, like we write it using Latin characters sometimes. It's a mix of Italian, French, and Berber, and Arabic. So even for Arab journalists, it's very hard to understand the Tunisian dialect. So you need Tunisians who can curate the information and take it out of Facebook, translate it into many other languages, and give it ready to the lazy mainstream media, because they don't understand the context, they don't understand the language. And this is what we were doing. Global Voices and Nawat, we were taking the content out of Facebook, translating, putting that into context, and sending that to Al Jazeera and France 24, with whom we had contact, and then Al Jazeera sent it back to every house in Tunisia, because not every house was connected to the internet, but they all were connected to Al Jazeera. So the information cascade that was created during the Tunisian revolution was like a pyramid. People were taking action on the ground. They were putting the video on Facebook. Other people, they were taking the video out of Facebook, translating that, putting that in context, sending that to Al Jazeera broadcasting back, not only in Tunisia, but to the entire Arab world. So they educated the Egyptians how to topple the government. And since then, the entire effect of the Tunisian revolution was seen in the street of Cairo, and then Yemen, Sana'a, Bahrain, Syria, etc. So this is, in short, what happened during the Tunisian revolution. And then, even after the Tunisian, this is the log that I took during what we call Operation Tunisia. This is the attack of Anonymous on the Tunisian infrastructure during the revolution. And this was a turning point in the Tunisian revolution, because before the operation in Tunisia that was carried by Anonymous, none of the Western media spoke or wrote a word about Tunisia. After the Anonymous attack against the infrastructure, we've seen New York Times, Washington Post, even CNN talking about the revolution in Tunisia. It was, well, CNN is talking about Tunisia. And since then, everything changed. All the media started talking about there is a revolution in Tunisia, actually. And then it helped us at least break this media blackout about the situation in Tunisia. Thank you.
I think a lot of people are really inspired by that, and it shows also, can also show the power of humour. When you were talking about the protest where you all stood around wearing white t-shirts, it reminded me at the height of the Arab Spring, I heard, I think it actually came by Global Voices, that there were alleged, a rumour was spread in China that there were going to be sort of protests and flash mobs involving small groups of people hanging around doing nothing. which I think probably had the same type of effect. Before we move to questions, I'll just point out the obvious, which is we are a little bit behind time, but I will take an executive decision that doesn't really matter. I can say to everyone that there is 10 minutes devoted to the wrap-up at the end of the day, which is me, and I can undertake to do it in much shorter than 10 minutes. So, but we will obviously, I think we'd much rather have a question time and we'll have a later afternoon tea. So can I ask people for questions? There's one right in the middle there.
Hi, my name is Julia from the Refugee and Migration Review Tribunals. I guess my question is sort of in two parts. The first part is, isn't it possible, because you're talking about a popular media device, that a small group of people can hijack a discussion from a country, and because they're very eloquently sending that out to the general mainstream media, that suddenly becomes the only conversation. So you have a situation, I'm just making this up as an example, this is not actually what's happening, but for all we know, because there is no actual mainstream media, say in Syria, and they're getting a lot of information coming out through social media, we don't know if that's actually, could be 5 people who have a feeling, and suddenly the entire world is saying everyone in Syria feels this way. How do we protect issues against that, or can we protect issues against that?
Yeah, it is a very good question. I think everybody is facing this situation in Syria, and there is a lot of rumors, and if we can make the comparison between Egypt and Tunisia and other countries in the Arab world, like the early internet penetration in Tunisia and Egypt, and this educated youth about new information technology, because they were facing or censorship online or repression online and offline, they knew how to use new information technology, and not only they knew how to use the information, but they knew how to organize, and they knew how to build network, and they knew how to meet face-to-face and share strategy and tactics. And this is what happened, at least as far as I know, between many activists from the Arab world, because they were collaborating during the last 10 years. I'm not sure, however, that a small group of 5 people or even 10 people could hijack the news. They can troll the news, they can troll Twitter, they can spam your wall. I don't think they can create an event on the ground, only 5 people. I think there is on the ground enough actors and factors on the ground that are struggling, at least for 20 years. I don't think that the Syrians were sleeping during the last decades. They were struggling. Many human rights activists have been jailed and arrested. Thousands of refugees, waves of refugees actually, starting from the 80s when the father of Bashar al-Assad cracked down of the city of Hama and then pushed many of the Muslim Brotherhood to flee the country and live in Europe. There were organizing online and offline, and there is a kind of opposition, so I don't believe that nothing is happening in Syria. I do believe that small group can provoke the news for a few times, but I don't think if there's nothing on the ground that could really sustain it.
We all laughed a couple of times at some of the stories. Sorry, I'm Tim, I'm from Oxford. We all laughed a couple of times at the stories you were telling there. Did these things come across as funny at the time? Were you deliberately using humour as a way of attacking, you know, the control? Or did it just look funny in retrospect? Did it feel more dangerous at the time?
It was a choice. I mean, humor and sarcasm and comics are part of the dissent. I mean, you can't. If the population is so afraid to talk about politics, the first step you do is to make them laugh about politics, and then they will start slowly by slowly talking about serious stuff. That was the first choice, like trying to make people laugh about the situation, make joke about the president, and if they dare to make jokes about the president, they will dare to criticize it seriously. The other choices, the strategy of language. I mean, Tunisia is a French and Arab-speaking language with some Italian. But since 2005, we understood that the French, at least the French government, wasn't supporting the democratic movement in Tunisia. And there was a very clever move from the cyber activists to use the English, which was strange at that time, using English in your discourse, in your websites. The menu is in English, everything's in English, was kind of new in Tunisia, not like Egypt or the Gulf region or the east part of the Middle East. In Tunisia it was new, because we understood that using English has much more impact on the global audience online than using French. So I think all those choices were quite thought and discussed among activist circles, and they were chosen because they thought the impact was bigger than staying using French or Arabic only.
Can I just ask a question? Whether you see the internet and social media overall as being a force for emancipation and good, because governments, I mean, especially maybe having seen the success of what happened in Tunisia and Egypt in overthrowing governments, that governments may have learned that lesson and may be sort of fighting back using the internet for propaganda. They're using soft puppets who promote government policy, and also using the internet for surveillance. It's interesting, you know, how important Facebook was. Julian Assange has called Facebook something like the most diabolical spy base in the world, because it does also maybe allow an enormous amount of information about people to be gathered in a company who might not be so good at keeping that information to themselves. So just wondering your response to that.
Yeah, I mean, the government, either they are democratic or oppressive government, are watching us. This is, I mean, for sure. Everywhere, here in Australia, or in the US, or in Tunisia, they still monitor the infrastructure, because we are communicating through an infrastructure that they are holding in their own hand. Can I finish? Yeah. So yeah, the danger of companies like Facebook is huge. I mean, because not only for activists, but for average internet user or what we call Facebookers. They know what we are writing, they know who we are, they know where we are, they know to whom we are writing our love letter messages, or who we are talking, or what kind of dissident information we are sending. They know everything, and not only that they know it, but they are written by law to give the information to the government when they are asked for. And we know now that Twitter is being asked by the US government to give some information about the Occupy activists in the US and elsewhere. Facebook provided thousands of information about thousands of activists to the US and even to the Tunisian government during the uprising and before. Unfortunately, we've seen how PayPal or Amazon, all those with big websites, trying to block the work of WikiLeaks and the activists around WikiLeaks, activists around Anonymous, and activists around many movements in their word and their upstream. So the danger of technology is there, but there is also awareness, there is a will coming from the activist side, at least to raise awareness about the danger of using information technology. You need to know how to use the tools. It's good that you know the technique of using the tools, but knowing the risk of using them, it's much more important. I think the important part of this is this awareness raising about how to use the internet safely, how to use tools like Tor, how to protect your IP address, your footprint online. If you are doing something dissident, if you are doing something dangerous, it is time to understand how to use the internet safely. Otherwise, like Google once said, you are not doing anything wrong, so why are you trying to hide it? I don't know.
We'll take two more questions. There's one there and then there's one back. So, there was one there.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. I was trying to get the attention of the chair. I'm John Sidman. I'm from Oxfam Monash Partnership. Very interesting presentation. And I must say that back in 2005, when Tunisia chaired and hosted the World Summit on Information Society, a little bit, I think, what was couldn't even imagine what was actually happening in Tunisia. I thought it was a sort of reflection on Tunisia's position of the information sharing or information access in the world. But I was naive. I think I just went by what I was reading at the summit presentations. It also sounds like, when Libya chaired the Human Rights Council back in the 90s. I'm just interested. I'm just interested to know what's happening now. I would be going into the website to have a look a bit more, but what's happening now in terms of what sort of role you're playing, what strategies are you developing, or what sort of support is happening around in the region, or just interested to hear a bit more. Thank you.
You're welcome. You mean in Tunisia or in the region? Or?
Yeah, well.
That's a big question.
Well, it's long. Because online, offline.
I meant your strategies, your
my own. Yeah. Okay. Well, personally, I was living in exile for 13 years in the Netherlands, and I came back to Tunisia after the revolution. So I'm working on social media. I'm training people on how to use new information technology, how to do investigative work using new information technology. That's what I'm doing now. The other thing is this, the new situation in which we are facing what we call political identity crisis, in which we have elected Islamists both in Egypt and Tunisia and Morocco, etc., which created a new situation in which there is maybe a coming back to censorship based on religion and moral values, which I think is the threat in Tunisia and maybe in Egypt. There is will to block all pornographic websites in Tunisia, which I don't like as idea. Actually, in Tunisia now there is no censorship at all. Technically, there is no censorship. All websites are really unblocked, pornography, pedophilia, everything. So it's great. But there is a will, at least from a conservative part of the government and the society, that a new censorship will be established to target pornography, pedophilia, and then political content as well, because we know censorship starts with moral and religious principle, and then will expand to target political dissent. This happens everywhere in the world. So there is this conservative tendency in Tunisia and in Egypt, which is coming from the Islamic part. I think it's normal. It's normal because this is a new era in which everybody is acting freely in the country. So it's normal that we are facing this conservatism. But it is a risky situation, and I hope we can deal with it.
Okay. Okay, the last question was right back.
Hi, Sami. This is Nauma. Sorry. Your use of the social media in Tunisia, I think everyone here would agree was quite ingenious. And my question is, are there plans to take this further from your viewpoint in terms of we've got people who are in Darfur, okay, and facing quite a lot of, I guess everybody has heard of it in one concept or another. And one of your points you raised before was that a lot of these issues tend to be put up as governmental concerns in a language that is more geared towards NGOs and governments and politicians. Has what you have accomplished with your organization, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, are those skills transferable? Are there ways to involve others, not necessarily in Tunisia, but for instance, Darfur?
Well, there is many NGOs and many, at least grassroots initiatives that are working about this specific subject for the last at least 6 years. There is, at least in the Middle East and the Arab world, we had the Arab Bloggers Conference, which started in 2006 and 2007. The last one was in Tunisia after the revolution, and which gathered almost all prominent and dissident and vocal and critical voices on the blogosphere and online in one room all together. Many of them have been arrested. Few of them now are arrested and are hiding. And we use it to share tactics and strategy. We use it to campaign for each other when we are arrested or when our side are blocked. So there is already an established network, at least in the Arab world, which worked together during the Arab Spring, before and after the Arab Spring. Globally, there is the network of Global Voices, which is working since 2004 to establish a network of bloggers, not only politically oriented bloggers, bloggers who are blogging about arts, about culture, about politics. I was responsible of the advocacy arm of Global Voices for the last 6 years. I just left Global Voices because I want to focus on Tunisia. And I was responsible of creating a network of anti-censorship activists from all over the world. And we met like 4-6 times at least to share tactics and strategy about how to disengage censorship and how to use new information technology, how to adapt some tools that are created in China or in Belarus or in Cuba and use them elsewhere in countries facing similar situation. But I don't think that all tactics and strategies are like, we can apply the copy-paste theory on that. You need always to adjust them depending on your need, on your context, and I think needs are the most important part of activism, because when you use a tool, you use it not because of luxury and comfort, because you need it. If people use Facebook for activism, they need to use it. If they could find something else much better suited to protect their privacy, they would use it. But until now, there's nothing. So there is sharing of strategy and tactics, but there is no like school that you can implement this part in other parts of the world. You need to know your need and then adjust tools depending on it.
Okay, well, thank you. Please join me in thanking